We're talking about criminal justice with Derrick Johnson and also Gina Clayton-Johnson. Nice to see you both. Thank you for talking with me. Wow, we've got a lot to cover because we're at a moment of transition in this country. And I'm curious, what do you think would further criminal justice reform?
I like to say that incidents result in momentary change, but infrastructure results in lasting change. And what we have seen is actually that there was coordinated infrastructure that was able to produce an opportunity for people to organize. What we have now is a situation of sustainable victory. And that is because of the infrastructure, that Black organizing, that has been led by formerly incarcerated people, directly impacted people, women, trans communities, indigenous communities have created to create the conditions of success.
And you guys are well aware of this debate, defund the police. When I would interview people, they would say to me, oh, that sounds so scary. Other people would say, oh, I think that means not giving funds for things that should be going to social services, like police officers interacting with people who are mentally ill. So there's a kind of wide spectrum of understanding some of this messaging. How do you build a coalition?
So when we use phrases like defund the police, that's not about building coalitions, because sometimes people outside of our community don't know how to interpret it. So we have to look at all these tools that's in front of us to get to the question of power, however we define power in our particular community.
So I run an organization in California called Essie Justice Group. And we're a loving and powerful community of women who have lost loved ones to mass incarceration. They are the ones who are seeing firsthand the ways in which our systems and our budgetary priorities have really failed to prioritize the health and safety and wholeness of our communities and our people. What I think needs to be clear is that their values are our values, right? That in the broadest sense of the word our, that we all want the same thing.
Then do you think, Derrick, that using that phrase, defund the police, was a mistake? Because there are certainly, as you know well, Democrats who said, hey, I narrowly squeaked by in my election because defund the police was a phrase that my constituents didn't read. They read it as, there should be no police in your neighborhood.
Status quo is a powerful gravitational pull for individuals. Change is something that majority of the population have never run to. When you look at change in this nation, it's always the few leading the majority. It's never the majority leading the few. So it's incumbent upon people like Gina and many other people across the landscape to be comfortable with being the leading guard for the change. And over time, people will follow.
I mean, Derrick, I just appreciate you. It's just so right on. And, sometimes it's just the encouragement that you need to hear at times, just to feel like, despite the fact that we are working in different places, different states, we are all part of the same movement. I think that one of the things that I really appreciated this year was having the opportunity to write together and to actually publish about a piece of federal legislation that we both really believe in called the Breathe Act. And the Breathe Act is one of those solutions that lays out a plan for safety and for justice in very concrete terms. Universal basic income, universal health care, all of the things that we know work to actually keep our communities safe and whole and healthy and free. Those are the things that exist in this bill that comes directly from the movement for Black lives. And so I think that, we need to really take a step back and look at the substance of what it is that our elected leaders, as Derrick so well pointed out, are really, really pushing for.
What do you guys think are the priorities? I mean, when I look at this list, right, you could say, okay, end mandatory minimums or end private prisons or restore voting rights.
I grew up in the city of Detroit. I was pulled over by the same two officers every day for 7 days. It was less than 18 months later, on my block, there was a person killed by these two police officers because he was standing on the corner, Malice Green on 23rd and Warren Avenue. The fact that individuals could commit crimes against individuals and hide behind the badge is unconscionable. Now the opportunity in front of us is to ensure those policymakers stay consistent with the value proposition that Black Lives Matter. And we begin to see systemic public policy changes to address century-long structural racism.
Do you think change comes from the top down or the bottom up, or does change come sort of both directions and meets in the middle somewhere?
Who do you think is paying the bail agents? Who's paying to get people out? It's all women, it's all mothers who are getting those phone calls, it's grandmothers, it's aunties, we're the ones scraping up the money. It is women who are doing that work every single day and can tell you very quickly and clearly, like, what they need is some reminders, an address, if they don't have an address, someone to wellness check, to go check on them, some resources. And these were all the solutions that our community was coming up with. And that is an example of like the bottom up solutions, not just stories, but solutions being driven from the bottom up, as well as, of course, the movement.
What advice would you each give about how an individual can help impact the system? Derrick, I'll start with you. And then Gina, I'll have you wrap up for us. Derrick?
Well, when you look at the dominant culture, our problems are oftentimes their solution. So we have to right size how we see one another in community and as neighbors, so one would not create a solution that's causing another community a problem. Identify those individuals like district attorneys, if you have one, who are pushing for restorative justice, and own your agency and appreciate that you are important to this conversation around system reform and the elimination of mass incarceration.
The thing that we have to confront is isolation. That we actually have not just a pandemic now, but an entire infrastructure at work. Mass incarceration is a perfect example of this, right? To separate individuals from their communities by distance and bars and concrete, stigma, marginalization, and so forth. To stay connected, because that is our biggest power against kind of all of the debilitating and the feeling of hopelessness and overwhelm that we can often feel when looking at kind of the world's problems. So stay connected, get organized, connect to your ancestors, connect to your people, and know that big change is possible when we embark on it together.